My name's Tracie Lund and I'm the manager of Morwell Neighbourhood House. So in my day-to-day work, I work with a number of people that are currently unemployed in Morwell and the broader surrounding Latrobe Valley. So that I do that in a lot of different ways. People come and volunteer with us. We might support them while they're working on some social skills and some work-related skills so that they can get ready to go into either work for the dole or other employment options if they're available. So I would say that there's quite a high unemployment rate in Latrobe Valley, and what we lack is the lack of opportunities and jobs that are relevant to the skill base. So, those blue-collar worker jobs, we used to have lots of when I was a kid, working in, I'm going to say, abattoirs or factories, things like that. They're not available now like they were, 20 and 30 years ago. So, and I think that has definitely contributed to the high rate of unemployment that we have in Latrobe Valley. So the high rate of unemployment in Latrobe Valley means that we are exceptionally busy. There are people in our town and our community that have time on their hands to do things. So we are always busy with our community lunches and our other social activities and our workshops and classes. How I would say it affects my work is that everything we do to make it so it's an opportunity for anyone to be involved, it has to run at a very low cost or no cost, because there isn't the expendable income in Latrobe Valley for people to contribute in that financial way to our resource, our neighbourhood house, like you would see in maybe other communities that are a bit more affluent and the unemployment rate is much lower. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all here. I think one of the things that we do exceptionally well that is exceptionally bad for us as a whole, as a community, is we demonise our unemployed people. We make it really difficult to get onto benefits of any kind, and we make it very, very difficult for people then to transition from that position into work, because I don't think what we're doing now really... I feel like what we've got set up now actually, it almost sets people up for failure. Because the people I work with and the community I deal with, if there were jobs, they'd be at work. It's not that they don't want to work. That's not the problem. The problem is there's not relevant work for the skill level, and quite often people might be working, but they are, what I would class as the working poor. So they're working just enough hours, just that gets them over the line, so that they don't qualify for any benefits, but they still, or any other supports, but they are still working, but they are living below the poverty line. And I think that's not good for us as a community or for the nation, is that we should be supporting people to be, it should be more about that hand up, not that hand out. And I think we have to get a bit more creative in how we organise our workforce and how we, use our skill base. I wouldn't say all of them, but a large majority of our community and people that are accessing our services that we've described are unemployed, but we also have quite a lot of people that, like I described before, would be what I call working poor. So they're working, like I said, just within that means, but it's still not enough to actually, pay your rent, pay your bills, and then still have money to, do your grocery shopping and send your kids to school. So there is a large component of that in Morwell as well. So just a little snippet on how neighbourhood houses work. We're actually funded through the DHHS under the coordination program, Neighbourhood House Coordination Program. So we are funded for a person, so you're looking at the person, and everything Neighbourhood Houses do has to fund itself. So all those services that you've just described, so our lawnmower bank, our free store, our Gippsland period project and our food bank, has to generate an income to then support itself. And that's where it's a challenge for my house in particular, in a community like Morwell, where the unemployment rate is so high, because like I mentioned before, you know, people don't actually have any income to, you know, they haven't got expendable income to share with Neighbourhood Houses and the other places in Latrobe Valley or Morwell. So it has an impact on how we do and how we deal with that internally, like so that we can continue to support through our services. So we look to philanthropic support, and quite often it's the staff giving extra hours and extra time, and we rely heavily on our volunteers that so generously give so much of our time, and nearly all of those are unemployed for one reason or another. So whether that's that they're just, you know, they're at that 60 age range and they're on New Start, you know, and they've still got to do some volunteer hours. It can be people that just generally, you know, are just there to volunteer, and it can be people that are doing work for the dole as well. But we rely heavily on our volunteers to actually support us to do what we're doing, and I think we do a pretty good job. But the reason you see those particular programs on our website is because it's about being relevant to our community. So our particular community at the moment doesn't really knock on our door and ask us for computer classes. But the Lawnmower Bank has run for since 2012, and that was around actually understanding that people that are in Department of Housing and or private rental properties that weren't mowing the lawn we're not mowing the lawn because they didn't want to, or they weren't house proud, or they thought it was somebody else's job. It was because they did not have access to a lawnmower. So when we got to the bottom of those conversations, they were around, we would mow our lawn if we, you know, but I can't afford a lawnmower, and I can't afford Jim's Mowing to come in and mow the lawn. So when we made a lawnmower available and said you can come and borrow it any time, we took a bit of a gamble. You know, will it come back? What's going to happen to the lawnmower? You know, that sort of stuff, because generally we're very protective of our own, and we don't like to give something without getting something back as a society. But we said, no, we trust you to mow your lawns and bring the lawnmower back. And now we have a fleet of 6, and they go out hundreds of times a year, because the issues around mowing the lawn wasn't that we didn't want to mow our lawns, or we weren't, you know, we wanted somebody else to do it. It was around access and cost. I can't access a lawnmower and I can't afford to buy a lawnmower. So when you take away those barriers, what will happen? You know, will they continue to not mow their lawns? And honestly, there's still people out there that won't, but you know, I think it's about, that's where I feel that we can be a bit more creative and learn from. There's some great things happening on the ground to support Morwell and Latrobe Valley. And I think we can learn a lot from doing, you know, looking at these things and start doing things a little bit differently. So yeah, we would say that was really around community pride. And there's a lot of pride in Morwell, but it's around they didn't have access. And it's access and cost. So what I would say, if we don't have the services like ours doing it a little bit differently and filling the gaps, because I think that's what we do, is we look for, you know, we're good at identifying what those gaps are and then coming up with something that will sort of just, you know, it's a bit of a pit stop. I think, you know, to the fabric of our community will be it in even more trouble if services like ours can't continue to do the work that they do in the way they do. And I think primarily for us it's about the way we turn it on its head, and we work with the asset, which is our people. Our people are the asset. Our people are the asset of our community. So we work with that as opposed to working at it, going, you know, this is our service, you will do this. Everything that you see that comes out of the Neighbourhood House has actually been workshopped with people that are actually, you know, using services. So before we put the food bank on the ground, we actually spoke to people that were using services already and found out, you know, what's a good food bank look like. What's a bad one look like? What are the barriers to accessing that? You know, if you were in this situation, what would make it easier for you to actually access? And that's how we came up with the model that we have today. So I think it's important that these services are resourced to actually continue to do it, because like I said, we don't actually have any resources. So we've got over 200, anywhere between 2 and 350 people that come through our door in a week, and they can come through to do a whole range of things. So they could be coming to our community lunch, where we might be supplying, you know, a meal, and it's around social engagement. They might be coming to our free store, so if we happen to have a free store on that week. A free store can get anywhere between 60 and 120 people through the door in less than, 20 minutes. So, and that is around, a free, like when we talk about being relevant to our community and what the community needs are. The free store came out of a conversation where people had come to me and said that they felt that in some cases, some people in Morwell couldn't even afford an op shop. They couldn't afford to go to the op shop, which was a conversation that I found challenging at the time, thinking, who wouldn't be able to afford the op shop? No, but I'm just saying, I was like, okay, so I took that on board. And the other part of that conversation was, I think lots of things go into landfill, and we could give those to people that need it. So we opened up our doors and we had stuff donated, and we just said to people, come and get it if you need it. And I was probably a skeptic. I thought, I'm not sure anyone's going to come. What if they just bring us stuff that they don't want to take to the tip or whatever? And the complete opposite has happened. So we opened the doors, and I think we had about, 40 or 50 people in on the first day. And they basically could just come and shop, take what they needed and left. And it's grown from there. In 2014, it runs every month now. And that is around the level of poverty in Morwell. That's one of the reasons that does, it is so popular, because people will come in and they'll shop and they'll get kids' clothes for their kids or household bric-a-brac, but it means that it takes it off their budgets, their really tight budgets, and it allows them to spend it on something else like food. So it's a really, that's one of the spaces I look at every month that it runs, and just, it really sort of reinforces the level of unemployment here in the valley, and particularly in Morwell, and the high needs of the community in that situation. So our Facebook reach is about 4,000, a bit over 4,000 a week. So we've just done some stats on that ourselves. So we would like to think we're good at getting messages out and actually working with the community. And one of the ways that we do that is through our social media platforms as well. But it's only one of the ways. We do it in lots of different ways, but that's probably the most visible to everybody that you can see. But the other stuff we do is really around opportunities like this, and then going and talking to groups and being available down at the house. The other thing that we do is that we have a shower available as well, and people utilise that shower. And that's probably, usually people that are, they might be living in their cars, or they're between places, or sometimes they've actually got a roof over their head, but they're not allowed to, they're staying in a room, but they're not able to actually access shower facilities. So they might come and shower down at the house, and we'll give them a hot meal, and they'll use the food bank, and, it just gives people, some people come in, had someone come in today to sleep. So came in and sat on the couch and had a rest and a coffee, and that's okay too. So, and that's about our role as the people's place, being available to everybody in the community. So it does mean it can range from someone sleeping on the couch to somebody showering, or somebody, showers there for free. Yes. So what I think is that if we've got opportunities in our businesses or our workplaces or whatever, our non-for-profits, where we can support another part of the community, and maybe that's not our original cohort, that's not the cohort we're able to, we're there to work with, but, it benefits our whole community from a holistic approach if we're all chipping in to do our bit, no matter what that looks like. So if you've got a shower and you can make that available, that's okay, and you're comfortable to do so, that's something that people can do. If you can contribute financially by supporting, the coffee shop to give out 50 free coffees for that week, or or something, that's an opportunity as well. It can look like anything that you're comfortable with, but I think if we all started really thinking about what is our contribution to our community, and how can we expand on that, or how can we just do our little bit, we'd all be a lot better off. And I think the cohesion of our community will grow, and the capacity of our community to really embrace each other will grow, but it has to come from us. It has to come from the ground. Yeah, so I guess from a federal level, I think we are failing our unemployed community, or our community that aren't lucky enough to have jobs, because we know that there's not enough jobs out there, and there's not enough full-time work. People are in part-time and casual works, if they are working, and they're living on the fringes as well. And I don't think the continued targeting of a very vulnerable community is really particularly helpful. So I think there's some work to do around, what it means to be unemployed. What are we actually asking people to live on? We're asking people to live below the poverty line, on an income that is below the poverty line. It's not a hand up or a hand out. It's very difficult to come back from that space. So I think there's some work to be done around that. And meaningful employment. What is meaningful employment? How do we get more meaningful jobs, and how do we transition workforces from one industry to another, or, as we're going forward in the future, what do the jobs look like? So I think there's quite a lot of work to be done there. On some social skills and some work-related skills, so that they can get ready to go into either work for the dole or other employment options if they're available. So I would say that there's quite a high need, there's quite a high unemployment rate in Latrobe Valley, and what we lack is the lack of opportunities and jobs that are relevant to the skill base. So, those blue-collar worker jobs are they were, 20 and 30 years ago. So, and I think that is the rate of unemployment that we have in Latrobe Valley.
Yep. Good. So has unemployment affected Morwell Neighbourhood House?
So the high rate of unemployment in Latrobe Valley means that we are exceptionally busy. There are people in our town and our community that have time on their hands to do things. So we are always busy with our community lunches and our other social activities and our workshops and classes. How I would say it affects my work is that everything we do to make it so it's an opportunity for anyone to be involved, it has to run at a very low cost or no cost. Because there isn't the expendable income in Latrobe Valley for people to contribute in that financial way to our resource, our neighbourhood house, like you would see in maybe other communities that are a bit more affluent and the unemployment rate is much lower.
Yep.
And I think that's not good for us as a community or for the nation, is that we should be supporting people to be, it should be more about that hand up, not that hand out. And I think we have to get a bit more creative in how we organise our workforce and how we, use our skill base.
Yep, I agree. I was hoping to do some of these topics more individually, but because we're a bit short on time.
Yeah.
Have you had experiences in your business with unemployed people who have been affected by homelessness, extreme poverty, mental health issues?
Yep.
Drug and alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, and even crime?
Some of the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis are around domestic violence. People, you know, when they're unemployed, you know, the role of the neighbourhood house, but we'll be supporting through the food bank or other things they might be tapping into. And then, you know, we will then find out that they will be living in their car, or, you know, they're in some sort of transitional moving around, I wouldn't say housing, but, you know, like accommodation. And they're generally been unemployed for quite a long time or not being able to secure any work. So it has a real impact at the core of our community. And I think, you know, that's where the challenges lie about what are the steps and how we can be, you know, how do we be more creative and how do we encompass everybody, and instead of, you know, the trickle-down effect, not trickling all the way down. Does that make sense? I've
Yeah.
waffled. Sorry. It was a big, long question, that one. Sorry.
Yeah, I was hoping to do
You are going to cut this, aren't you, where I'm talking between?
Just the stuff that's related to those topics.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was hoping to do each one individually.
Yeah, that's fine. I've got till. The message for me is really about rethinking the way we work with people, and really understanding the impact that, you know, not having meaningful employment has on our community and on individuals. You know, and that goes to the fabric of everything that we are. So I think we need to do better. I think that's my message.